strange how you can get set in your ways, and I try not to. I always try and think, you know, is there something I can improve? Is there something I can change for the better and things like that? And this filming these updates has made a dramatic change in routines. Instead of messing about on the computer for the first few hours of the day, because that can be done any time of day, it doesn't matter. But my window for filming and getting on with my watering and stuff like that in this sort of weather is limited, because all the fans fire up, the noise level's too high, and quite honestly it gets a bit too warm for comfort out here. You know, a lot of the time it's around 28 degrees, and with the sort of 60-70% humidity at that temperature, working in it is not ideal. You know, dozing off in a chair would be brilliant, but working in it, you know, it's harder going than it is like now. It's cool at the moment, and everything's still and quiet. And yeah, it's just a change of which end of the day I do things. You know, I mean, it's only just gone 8 o'clock in the morning. The floor's already had its first soaking to get the humidity up. I'm in the process of filling the foggers, halfway through one, and I've got my first water feed ready, and I'm up and running. So now I can water and film in comfort and faff around on the computer just later in the day, basically. As it happens, I was up extra early this morning, so I've already done my comments and stuff, so I am actually up to speed on the computer stuff. So anyway, let's crack on. Oh, and the other change, these two circulating fans have always been manual ever since I have had them. So I switch them on when I think they're needed and then turn them off when they're not needed anymore. I mean, I don't run those overnight. But for this summer, they're fixed up to a little thermostat. So they're temperature controlled now. When the temperature reaches 23, they kick on. And it's already 21, so I'll have to get a move on or they're going to kick on. Now, when I'm filming, if I know that temperature is going to hover around sort of 24 and not get any warmer, because it's a sort of dullish day, then I can manually turn them off and carry on filming. But I can go out now and not worry. You know, I used to have to make a decision. Is the sun going to come out? Will I need the fans on? Or shall I leave them off because it's raining and stuff like that? Well, now they just do their own thing. So it's a tiny little change that's a major improvement. But it's a change of routine. I mean, I still came out this morning and thought, do I need to turn the fans on? Oh, no, I don't. They're automated. Duh. Anyway, let's crack on with the task in hand. I've deliberately got to this stage to be able to start this, to get a lot done today. Now, this is a little Kingianum hybrid. This was Kiki's that I took off of a giant mounted version of this that I sold, basically. It got too big for its boots. And they're not my favourite dendrobiums. I don't find the blooms that interesting. I do like berry odour, I must admit, but again, the ones I've had have gone. Alberto's got one in flower at the moment. That was one of mine. But just to give you a clue, that new cane there is probably half the size it can get to. So this one's to go. And as I said, that is not a large cane for this plant. For Dendrobium kingianum, the actual true species, which is getting harder to find now because there's too many hybrids on the market masquerading, they don't grow into giant plants as much as some of the hybrids do, but this really does get big, and it's just a vigorous grower when it gets a hold, but that one's to go down the line a bit. Well, this little Psychopsis was lurking in the depths of the big box. And I doubt if it liked the cold, but nonetheless I asked about it, and this is what it looked like when it was got. So quite honestly, it didn't get any worse despite the cold in that box. But what I'm looking for on here is a new growth. It has got some roots down in there, but it needs a new growth. It needs to put some active growth on. This would be its latest growth, and obviously the leaf didn't open up properly. That may have been when it didn't have a very good root system, but this one's got some roots. It's got no excuse, but it does need to push up a new growth. And that may give me a clue as to what sort of size it's going to eventually be, because this is a young plant. There's definitely no doubt about that. And it's a hybrid between Papilio and Sandraei, or Sandraei, however you say it. Okay, this is Odontoglossum naevium, and this has just come into bloom, just literally in the last few days. It's got 2 spikes open. Probably one of my favourite blooms. They're just so frilly, wispy, delicate, lovely bright yellow in the centre, lovely spotted patterns front and back, lovely blooms, and you know, the spikes tend to produce a fair old few. This plant was repotted after last time it bloomed, so it can stay where it is for a bit. It's got another 2 spikes coming, one here and one here, and it's blooming on growths that grew on through the winter, and they're not even fully matured yet, so it's certainly not up to the size of some of the previous bulbs. That could just be the time of year they grew. Obviously it's there may even be, in fact there's a couple of new growths that still haven't started to spike yet, so there's going to be some more spikes on this, I suspect. This blooms on every new growth it produces since I got it, so it does well for me. It does like to be a bit cooler, so it's not so happy in the summer, but if it's going to bloom like that, it can't be doing bad. This effectively is the rest of the Coelogenes. They just happen to be on a different shelf, so they weren't collected with the others. Now this is Flaccida, and this is a staller. It did grow 2 new growths last year, but there's no sign of life on it this year yet. That's a wait and see. It just seems incredibly slow. So that's that one. This is Orchracia, or it's now called Nitida. This one was in bloom not that long ago. Bit not that keen on the fragrance on this one. Had a hint of cat pee in it. Well, for me it did anyway. But it's coming back into growth now. It's got 2 nice strong new growths coming, and hopefully they'll bloom again when they mature. Well, it'll be next year, I suspect, late winter. That's that one. And the other one is the second pot full of Coelogene cristata, variety Lemoniana. And like the other one, this is putting on quite a good few new growths at the moment. It has managed to escape out of the pot slightly. But nonetheless, again, like the other pot full, I'm quite pleased with the bulbs, because they're not showing signs of desiccation. They're all nice plump bulbs, so I should get blooms on that next year. There's no reason why not. The strength in the plant is building up slowly but surely from, well, we'll call it a near-death experience. So it's coming on well. Now obviously as I go round we will come across rescue plants. This one is not a rescue plant. This is a miniature type. It's Odontodia, it's registered as. It's a very old cross, and it's Devosiana, and it isn't really a rescue plant, known as the dirty Odontoglossum, because the old bulbs turn black, and that's natural. That's just how they go. But it has got a reasonable new growth on it, and when this bloomed, this was the flower spike, which I'm using to strap the plant still because I repotted it. I've got new roots coming out, and the bloom spike on that was probably about 3 foot long and had about 40 blooms on it from such a tiny little plant. So I'm hoping this new growth will do it when it matures. This I don't think is going to make it. The whole plant rotted, one of those bacterial rots where the whole plant goes down in a couple of days, and I took a lead off in hope, but I'm not sure that's going to make it. It doesn't feel soggy, so I may have caught it in time. That will be a shame. The blooms on that were beautiful. And that's it's actually an Odontoglossum type, but it's labelled as Oncidium, obviously, and it's Gold Coast, Stonehurst. What's that last bit? Yellow, I think. I don't think that's going to make it, but we can try. Now this monstrosity is Bratonia Bratonia Sheila Tolkien. Consequences of starting early in the day, my mouth won't work. But it is often sold as Miltassia Shelob Tolkien. Either will do. But looking at the blooms, you can see there's probably a good percentage, if not over half, is Brassia in there. With those shaped blooms, that's Brassia traits, definitely. Stunning blooms. There's just no other word for these. The colour combination and the detail on the lip is just gorgeous. So this is one of my favourites. And it does well for me. This has currently got 4 spikes on it. It's 2. That one will be open next, followed by that one, and then this one coming up the rear. This is another one. It blooms on every single new growth it produces. It's vigorous, it's a strong grower, always seems to have a good root system under it, just does well. It's a, if you're going to go into the Oncidium Alliance as a new thing, this is a good one to get, because it's difficult to fail with this one. It really is, providing you get one that's at least got some roots on it when you get it. That's always a proviso with the Oncidium Alliance. A lot of the ones you buy are just a pot full of dead roots, and it's not a good start in their life, is it? So anyway, beauty, that one. I'm just shuffling a few things round. That's a good colour combination. That's a Sherry Baby, the Shelob Tolkien, and the Odontoglossum niaevium. That makes a lovely little group. It's going to get completely messed up in a minute because Wedding Bells is going to open and that's yellow. So something will have to give. But yeah, I like that. That's a nice little group. Well, these are my 3 potted Phalaenopsis. This is Sweet Memory. This gets filmed quite often, obviously, because it's in bloom. So it's a good plant. It's got a good root system, and it is out the other side of the plant producing some branches on some of its existing roots. Its winter leaf wasn't as large as the others, but I think it's still growing, actually. I don't think it's finished. It's the leaves are huge, so this one's got Mount Me written all over it. It's just starting a new leaf and new roots at the base. So now's a good time to get that on a mount. I quite like the smaller Phalaenopsis on mounts. This thing, I'm keeping it because I love the blooms on it, but it's only got 3 leaves, and there's something up with this. I can never put my finger on it, but although it's got some roots down near the bottom of the pot just permanently stays wet. It will not dry out. In fact, I think from now on it's going to come off of that tray and get some air in from the bottom. But it's growing some new roots at the top, but they're going to be aerial. So to hydrate the aerial roots, I end up getting water in the pot when it's still wet. So I'm having trouble with this one at the moment, but it's a bit big to go on a mount. It would do, and it's got new roots coming. Now would be a good time to do it. But as a mount, bearing in mind it can't go up in the high light with the dendrobiums and things, it's going to be somewhere that I'm going to end up getting annoyed with it because it will be in the way. I'll have to constantly move it to get at the plants behind it or whatever. But I'm having to think about that. I'm not going to water that at the moment. The easy answer would be to gently spray those aerial roots and not water the pot. I'll have to have a look at my records. Maybe it's just been in the pot too long and that bark's breaking down. But first job, get it out the tray, get some air around the bottom of the pot and see if that will do the trick. If something's not working, just try changing it. So one to go to one side to mount, definitely, and one to have a think about. This is my Phalaenopsis japonica, or Sideria, and this is not a happy plant, and I'm getting sloppy. I need to keep up with things. I've just had a look in my records and read the date this was last repotted, because looking in the pot, it's not happy. Down in the pot, it's not happy. And that has been in that pot nearly 2 years. So it could be that the bark's on its way out. But at the moment, it's just showing signs of some new roots starting. Some of these older leaves don't look good, do they? I think I'm going to repot that one too. As I'm going to have a kitchen session, I just will have a session and you know, make one lot of mess. So I think that can go to one side. This Psychopsis is suffering exactly the same as the other one I showed you. Too cold in the winter out here, doesn't like being in the house. So much so that the top of the spike actually just dried right out and started to die back. So I've lost the bud area on this spike. I didn't cut it right off because this is still green and there is a chance it could branch. But this one had no roots. It's now grown a root system, and the last thing it did was put up this weak, pathetic new growth. So again, like the other one, to get this plant going, it needs a new growth. Now, strangely enough, this one actually had spider mites. You can see the damage. Yeah, I mean, they've been treated, they're not there anymore, but the damage is done. And it's normally done by the time you spot the damage, and by the time you spot it, it's too late. It's already done. Little blighters. Well, they are pretty small, quite honestly. Anyway, it now has no bugs, and it has some roots. So, again, I'm just waiting for a new growth to see what happens with that one. But not a happy plant, but at least this one's got some roots. I keep forgetting to say that's Papilio, and it's the Alba form, so no reds on this one, just yellows and creams. It's a lovely bloom, if I ever see them again. Now, this is my other Sherry baby, and at a glance you'd panic. You'd think, oh my god, the plant's dying. Well, actually it's not. It's just doing my old leaves are due to drop. It just happens coincidentally to be doing quite a few at the same time. I mean, if you look here, this is a separate little piece here on the side that wasn't worth putting in a separate pot, so it went in this one to try and get a new growth to happen, which should happen soon. But the old leaves on the oldest pseudobulb are dying. It's the oldest pseudobulb. And it's the same with this piece in here. The oldest pseudobulb is dropping its leaves. But, you know, we've got a strong new growth coming up here, another one coming up here, and the last one that matured actually bloomed. So it looks a mess, but it's not. It's just a matter of look, you know, I mean, this has got nice healthy roots down in the pot. And it's growing new growths. And they're nice and bright and green. And the latest leaves on the other parts of the plant are fine. It's just the really old leaves have had their time. They don't last forever. So that is not going to bloom now until those new growths mature. So that'll be a while. Now, this is my largest bulbophyllum by a lot. This is Wilbur Chang. But as a bulbophyllum, it's also my favourite, even though it's never bloomed. And the reason is tiny little short stubby rhizomes, so the plant stays in its pot and doesn't climb out. And it has beautiful leathery strappy leaves. Now this plant at the moment, that was its last two latest growths. The leads split and pushed a new growth out either side. And have they bloomed? Have they hell? But they've grown up, nice big bulbs, nice leaves, and now at the other end of the plant it's virtually doing the same thing and pushing out two new leads. Well, I presume they're going to be bulbs. But anyway, this one's got nice roots underneath it. Oh, would you believe it? Look what I've just spotted. Right at the base there, just under my finger. That could be another new growth, or it could be a spike. I wonder if there's one at the other end. Oh, that one's a bit deeper in the pot. Well, who knows? That could be a spike, in which case that'll be its first bloom. But I'd keep that plant for a while, quite a while, even without blooming. I just like it. Looks nice. Yeah? It's only ever had one real badly damaged leaf that I sliced off the end, but apart from that, this is its oldest leaf, so that's probably come to the end of its time. So it has no leafless bulbs on this one, so you know, the oldest one starting to go is not a problem, and the latest leaves are up to good size and everything, so yeah, very happy with that one. But I would like it to bloom, that would be nice. Like Wilbur Chan, these four bulbophyllums came from Archie as a gift, along with another one I'll get to later. It's in a totally different place. But this is the bit that I don't like about bulbophyllums, and to me it's just non-appealing. Look at the length of the rhizomes here, yeah? And then from there over to the back, and then from there over to here. You know, there's only 4 bulbs in that pot. Anyway, its latest growth was trying to climb out of the pot, and I managed to bring it round into the centre of the pot, peg it down so that the roots got straight into the pot. It's a reasonable sized bulb with a reasonable leaf, but that's as far as that one's got. So that allegedly is Bulbophyllum crassipes, but Archie wasn't sure, so we'll have to wait and see with that one. Right, over here, let's do this one first. This is another one. Look at the length of these rhizomes, yeah? And this decided to shoot out back here, and this is its latest growth. And it's only just in the pot, and it isn't in it properly. I think I might try and get that round and do like I did with the other one and peg it down. It's got a lovely new leaf on it, you know, good size, much bigger than anything before. But those roots are just aerial. They need to get in something, and they won't where it is now. And that one is Delatescens. Yeah, I need to peg that thing down and at least try and get some of the roots at least in the media, and then the next growth will probably come out of that one. Well, whichever way it goes, hopefully I can keep it in the pot and not let it climb out. So that's that one. This one's a worry. This is Deary, and it headed off in two directions. And this is one of the directions. Grew a new growth, promptly dumped the leaf. Grew another new growth, and the leaf virtually disintegrated, half of which I had to cut off. And then at the other end, it grew this new growth with a nice leaf, and is now pushing out another one. Up this end, it also aborted a new growth. The back end of this plant is not right, and before I put this back on the shelf, that's going to get a knife down in there, and I'm taking this part of the plant off, because whatever's wrong with it, I don't want getting into the rest of the plant. So okay, that will leave only half the plant, but at least it's half the plant with good leaves and a new growth. So I'm not unpotting it or doing anything, I'm just going to literally cut that rhizome and take that bit out, and then we'll see what happens with the other end of the plant that doesn't seem to be doing too bad. Right, that's that job done. I'd rather do a job when I think of it. I put some cinnamon on the rhizome, and you also know me, when I cut into a rhizome it gets a very, very close inspection. So we had no pretty purple colours, so the plant is safe from that point of view. And what's left doesn't look too bad, but that bit's been annoying me for a while, and it just, you know, while I'm taking a closer look and filming, I thought that bit of that plant needs to come off. If there's anything in it that's transmittable, it's gone now. That's the best thing to do with that one, I think. Now this Zygopetalum is unusual for me because it's alive, and it's doing pretty good. It's got two new growths on it. I've filmed these recently, so I'm not going to dwell on it. This is Louisendorf, and whether these two new growths are actually going to produce a spike or not, I don't know. A lot of zygos produce their spikes when the growths are quite young, some of them when they're about halfway grown, and some zygos wait till the bulbs are almost full size. So there may be some spikes to come on these two, but no sign at the moment. Just good new growths with good roots pushing out. I'll live with that for now. Now this is a no ID Zygopetalum hybrid, basically, and this one is helping me dispel two myths. The first myth I've already mentioned, that I kill zygos. Well, I don't anymore. And the second myth is that even if I manage to keep them alive, I can't get them to bloom. Well, we dispel that myth as well, because we have a nice strong spike. Now this is odd, this plant, because that's the smaller of the growths, which is already spiking. The larger isn't. It may well do, I don't know. It may have missed his chance, depends on how the plant sort of progresses. But we've got new roots coming out at the base of those new growths. We've got a reasonable root system on the rest of the plant, and two nice strong new growths, one with a spike. So can't be bad. After all the deaths, we have life. And the last of the larger Zygopetalums, this one's not up to much. It has produced a new growth, far from mature yet, still growing in fact. Not much sign of root life at the base of that, but some of them don't push out their roots till the bulbs are mature. And this is got a strange name, it's Arta Ellie. variety Stonehurst, which once upon a time was awarded. Well, it'd be nice to see some blooms then, wouldn't it? But there's no sign of a spike on this growth. Quite honestly, the state the plant was in when I got it, I was happy to get a new growth and see it grow on. So we'll work with that for the time being. But I don't suspect that spike will bloom. I could be proven wrong. And the last one in this little set was one of the big box orchids, which probably didn't like the cold that much in the transport. This is for a small little plant, this is a mouthful. It's a cross, so it's not a zygopetalum. It's Zygonesia, Murasakii, Kamadu, dark blue French spelling. And it's just starting something, which I hope will be a new growth. That doesn't want to be a spike on a plant like that. Not much root system in there, young plant, hopefully to grow on. But that's its hope there. If that's a nice new growth and it pushes on well, then that'll bring the plant back. But it's living, but not doing well. Now this monster is actually a coleogyny despite its size. That's the tag. It's Moriana magnifica Brockhurst. It says on the tag large white flowers. Well, it's right then, isn't it? These are large white flowers, but they're not just white. These golden throats in here are absolutely gorgeous and hairy. Hope the camera can show that. Anyway, this is its second spike. The first spike finished a few days ago, and I'm not going to cut that one because it goes right down into the centre of the rosette of leaves, so I'm going to let that one do its own thing because it will probably just die back on its own. And the third growth may or may not have a spike, so we might have a blind one out of the three, but this is a hell of a drinker. It's a job to keep up with this one, it really is. And it needs a lot of water. But then again, you can just picture, you know, the rate of growth on these new growths is quite fantastic. And these are very large bulbs with very large leaves. A lot of the older bulbs are a bit shriveled because it lost its root system. Certainly as the last two bulbs were developing, it didn't have a good root system to support it. Well, it's now got a pot full of roots, and the latest growths are either going to, well, one's bloomed, one's blooming, one may not, but they're producing new roots as well. So I've now got a strong root system under there, so as these growths mature and produce their bulbs, they should be nice big fat bulbs. But yeah, first time bloomer, and yeah, it's quite special.